Hey everyone, Sumo Spiffy here. Welcome to our Guess the Banzuke draft for May, that is Natsu 2023. We're at the GTB Helper, run by Chiyotasuke. Props to him again. There's actually a new thing here that I want to show you. There's a checkbox called Hover over Rikishi to highlight his opponents. If you check it, then if you hover over somebody, like I'm hovering over Hoshoryu, you see outlined everybody that he fought in the last basho. And there's even a little table up here. If they're in black, then that was somebody he beat. In red, it was a loss. Dashes mean it was Fusen. There's a outside line if there was a playoff. So if we do like Daisho, he's got a double red line around Kiribayama because he lost to Kiri in the playoff. Likewise, Kiri, double black line around Daisho because he beat him in a playoff. I'm going to turn that off for this because it doesn't really matter that much for figuring out the Banzuke, but it's a cool little feature. I'm going to get use out of it. You might get use out of it. There it is. Now let's get started with the actual placements. One thing I want to point out is that I've taken a little bit of a look at this, but I have not gone through this and made a draft yet. What you are seeing here is my actual drafting process, only edited for brevity. You're going to get about 90% of my initial thought process. I've given a little bit of an idea of a thought to the top and to the overall sense of how everything's going to move. But I haven't placed anybody yet. I haven't done my own draft in another form. So we're doing this fresh. Let's get into it. We'll start by moving everybody that's going to be at the top of the Banzuke. For simplicity's sake, I've moved everybody into the basic rank where they should end up, but I have everybody stacked up so we can quickly talk about exactly where they're going to go and why. For the Sekiwake, Hoshoryu was at Sekiwake 1 West. He went 10-5. Okay. Kiribayama was Sekiwake 2 East. He did better than Hoshoryu. Now, last basho, Wakamoto Haru was behind Kotonowaka, had a better record, moved ahead of Kotonowaka. Kotonowaka stayed in place. They could treat Sekiwake differently, but I don't think they will. So I think it's most likely Hoshoryu stays at 1 West, Kiribayama moves from 2 East to 1 East because he had the better record and they were both Sekiwake. The norm after that is for anyone who is an incumbent at the rank to stay ahead of those who are new to the rank. So Daisho and Wakamoto Haru are going to go to S2 because they both had 11 wins. They're going to get promoted into extra Sekiwake ranks, but they will be behind Kiri and Hoshoryu. And Daisho should go ahead because he had the better record. So that would put Daisho at Sekiwake 2 East, Wakamoto Haru at Sekiwake 2 West. For the Komusubi, Wakatake Kage had 7 wins at Sekiwake, which sounds like a tongue twister, but whatever. Kotonowaka is the only Komusubi who's staying at the rank, and he had a winning record, obviously, so he's going to move to 1 East. Shodai from 1 West at 10-5 is almost certain to move up. I can't see any world in which they only move him from 1 West to 1 East. That would be, given how things are now with the lack of upper sanyaku, that would be kind of crazy. He's going to go to 1 West. The reason he's going to 1 West and not Wakatake Kage is because once you figure out who everybody at a given sanyaku rank is going to be, anybody being demoted to that rank goes at the end of the line. Wakatake Kage is being demoted from Sekiwake, so he's going to be the last Komusubi on the list. We have an East in Terunofuji, we have a West in Takekeisho, we go back to the East for Wakatake Kage. Now, as far as Abi and Midori Fuji, the reason I put them on here is because the math puts them above Megashira 1, and I didn't want to make it look too ugly. But basically, Abi would move up from 2, mathematically, he would end up here, whereas Midori Fuji, coming from 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, would end up here. Abi is ahead on the math, Abi ends up ahead at Megashira 1. Everyone else calculates to somewhere Megashira 2 and below. So let's clear off the names and we'll do the math for everyone else, get them in their initial positions before sorting them out. Here I have everybody that was in Makuuchi last basho and everybody from Juryo who mathematically places in Makuuchi. This is a phrase that I want to start using more, places in or placed in. If we look at a guy by the math, mathematically calculated, it is maybe slightly more accurate, but placed in is really what we're talking about and it's quicker. For example, Azumaryu 4 and 11 at Megashira 11 East. He drops 7 ranks by math. That puts him outside of Makuuchi, so he places in Juryo. Ganoyama 11 and 4 at Juryo 6 East. He goes up 7 ranks. He ascends out of Juryo, so he places in Makuuchi. This is only for the initial calculations. It is very common that you have more or less than the exactly 42 guys you need placing in Makuuchi, which means if you have less than 42 who place there, you have to bring guys up who place in Juryo. If you have more than 42, you have to move some of them down. In this case, I've forgotten Tobizaru, so let me get him in here real quick. Okay, sorry, Toby. So here we have 46 guys, right? We have 46 guys as this is saying. So we're going to have to remove 4. Now, the quickest 2 to take out are Azumaryu and Bushozan, because I've only put them on the list here because they were in Makuuchi last time, but Megashira 18 is not a rank that we have right now. They're out. So let's get them out of here. All right, now we're at 44, but let's start at the top and work our way down. We'll talk about who gets to stay and who has to go later. At the top, right now I have Tobizaru at Megashira 2 rather than Megashira 3, because as I've mentioned before, it appears very much, thank you to Guruwake again for this, that guys who are demoted out of the sanyaku get what we'll call a rank of padding. So they move down an even number of ranks rather than an odd number. From Komusubi, 6 and 9, that's normally 3 ranks, so we move him down 2. He goes from Komusubi to Megashira 2. He was on the west side, we keep him on the west side, and we go on. They have been moving towards giving preference in ties to guys with better records, so for the most part, I'm going to just stick with that, at least initially. If there are things that look really wrong at a glance, I'll change them later. So for right now, I'm going to move Takayasu to Megashira 2 East, and Tobizaru is going to stay at Megashira 2 West. That seems fine. Likewise, Nishiki Fuji, I'm going to move up to 3 West, and Ura to 4 East. Now you'll notice we've got some definite over promotions happening here. If you are familiar with some of the videos that I've made in the past, you might remember me talking about unused promotion ranks and unused demotion ranks. Well, in this case, we have a ton of unused promotion ranks. Kirabayama, +9, he can't use any of them. Daisho, +8, he has 9, but he can only use 1. Hoshoryu, +5, can't use any. Wakamoto Haru can only use 1, so he's +6. Kotonowaka could only use 1, even though we're saying he's not going to. So that's +2. Shodai could use up to 2, so that's +3. Those are all ranks that aren't being used. So they're not being used to push anyone up, but somebody had to lose each of those fights, so they're getting pushed down. Similarly, Onisho has 6 Kyujo losses. He goes down because of those, but there was no winner of those fights, so that just creates bigger gaps in the Banzuke. So we're seeing those gaps, we're starting to fill them, but that's why there's those gray spots in the middle. It ends up collapsing everybody into that, Megashira 8 to 13 range, and so that's going to get a little messy. For right now, let's just deal with what we've got. Nishikigi, 6 and 9. Now, one other thing, because I think those of us who do this are very used to, if a guy is on the east side, he stays on the east side. Asanoyama and Ichinojo are coming up from Juryo. At the bottom of Makuuchi, there's only one slot at Megashira 17. There's only East. What I have noticed is that it appears they only count that as a half a rank. They don't say that a guy who is going up through Megashira 17 East when there's no West is actually going through a full rank in terms of the math. They're making him only go through one half a rank. So that's why Asanoyama and Ichinojo are all the way up here. If you have them tied with Kinbozan, I think effectively that's not wrong. I think they're going to end up behind Kinbozan anyway. Even though the Juryo guys last basho weren't penalized at all for not having been in Makuuchi, which is very unusual, I think these guys are at least going to be pushed back a little bit, but there's not that many people who can push them back. So we're probably looking at Kinbozan and Nishikigi being ahead of them, I think, and that might be it. So this is going to be a little bit wild. Nishikigi, 6 and 9, 3 West. Do we just put him at Megashira 4 West, have him only drop 1 rank? Maybe. I'm going to do that because a guy jumping from Megashira 14 to Megashira 4, even on an 11 and 4, has it been done? Sure. But is it happening now? I don't know. Like I said, I think Kinbozan is going to be ahead of Asanoyama and Ichinojo, so let's put him there. Him and Nishikigi could switch. So let me just draw a little arrow there. I think these two guys could very easily end up in either one of those spots. Likewise, I'm going to put Ichinojo ahead of Asanoyama? No, Asanoyama. But, I mean, these guys could go in either order. The fact that you've got Juryo guys going from even the top of Juryo all the way to essentially the back end of the Joy, they're just outside of it, is insane. This never happens. Yeah, we're talking about guys who belong at this level, who have the skill for this level, but they don't make Banzukes based on known skill. They do it on performance. And they usually don't push guys this high. They will deflate the increase at least a little bit. But there's no one to give priority to instead of these guys. There's really nowhere else for them to go that I can see. It feels weird, but this is what it is. Kota Shoho was 6 and 9 at Megashira 5 East. Hokuto Fuji, 7 East, 7 and 8. I think Hokuto Fuji, obviously he can't go above 7 East, but I think he probably stays there and doesn't get demoted. That means Kota Shoho has nowhere to go but here, 6 West. Rank and a half on a 6 and 9 record? That's fine. Under the circumstances, that's pretty good. Now we move down a little bit. Meisei and Sato Umi. Well, both of these guys are getting seriously under-demoted unless they decide to massively over-promote Takanosho or even Takara Fuji. I don't think they're going to do that. What do we do? Meisei, 5 and 10. Do we just give him a 2 rank or a 3 rank drop? That's actually okay. And then Sato Umi moves over here, rank and a half drop. That's actually okay. You could switch them around if you wanted to go with the better record, which I said was what I was going to do. But even at a glance here, this seems really weird. Like it's like you're giving Sato Umi a lot of favoritism, I guess it looks like. You're definitely not punishing him very much for his 6 and 9, whereas Meisei, he's not getting his full demotion, but it feels like he's taking a bigger hit, you know? I feel like this makes more sense, but again, Meisei and Sato Umi here, let's mark it, could really go in either direction. That's a shit arrow, but you know what I'm trying to say. All right, who's next? Well, Mitakeumi and Tamawashi. These guys not getting pushed down so far is fine. That's pretty normal. In fact, I would be willing to bet that Tamawashi goes ahead because guys with really terrible records end up getting a little bit of a softer drop. So 3 and 12 is exactly the kind of record where they're not going to smack the guy full force unless there's really no other way to do it. If they can save him a little bit, they usually will. So, all right, Tamawashi, 7.5. rank drop out of 9. That's fine. Mitakeumi, 6 rank drop out of 9. That's fine. Hiradoumi and Takanosho. Well, Hiradoumi, if we put him in front, then he's at 9 West and he gets 0 demotion, right? So let's put Takanosho there. Now, last time there were a couple of instances where guys, there was like a half rank difference, but it looked like they pushed down the guy who calculated slightly ahead. Now we have what's really our biggest clusterfuck of the whole thing. We've got Daishoho, Hokuseiho, and Aoyama all tied, and then guys directly behind them as well. Let's continue with the best record gets preference. We'll move Hokuseiho in front to 11 West. Whoop, that's not him. Now, Aoyama, I would have given anything before last basho to bet that Aoyama would stay in place and Daishoho would only get a half rank of promotion. But Myogiryu got an over demotion by a half rank to give somebody a better promotion. That's not what they usually do, but they did it then, and that may be a new way that they're doing things. It's not illogical, and in a sense, it's actually a way to keep pushing down the older guys who are on their way out anyway. I don't know if they're thinking like that, but that's kind of the vibe. That's how it looks. So for the moment, let's say that's what they continue to do. Aoyama goes to 12 West. Kotoeko, they're not going to push Aoyama below a guy who is behind him by the math, so Kotoeko moves back. And now what do they do with Chiyoshoma? Well, if you continue the snake down, Chiyoshoma should take Ryuden's place, and Ryuden gets bumped down to 14 East. But even with a guy that the committee might not like, if you believe that that's a reason why they make some decisions, they're not going to over-demote a 2 and 13 guy. They're a lot more likely to have Chiyoshoma just get a 2 rank promotion rather than 3 on his 9 and 6. Even by the standards of, yes, they might over-demote a guy who's 6 and 9, I really don't think they're going to do it to a guy who's 2 and 13 if they don't have to. They could move Ryuden up and soften the fall, but I don't really see a good reason to do that, and I don't see who they would push down. Who does it make sense for them to push down in order to make that happen? We're going to leave Ryuden there. In the final version of this, I might find a reason to push him up. I don't know, but I don't have one right now, so we're going to leave that alone. Myogiryu and Ichiyamamoto, I mean, we'll just put Myogiryu in front because, I mean, one of them has to go in front, and again, he has the better record. I have no idea. I really don't. It sucks that they're on different numbers, because if you're playing Guess the Banzuke, you can't just sit there, pick it, and get, well, I'll get at least 1 point for each one. No, if you get them in the wrong order, you don't get anything. But I don't know, I got to think about that. But those two should be 14 West and 15 East in whichever order. And now we got to talk about who stays and who goes, because we've got 4 slots left. 15 West, the 2 16s, and 17 East, but we've got 6 guys. Now, if you just drop the bottom guys, Kageyaki goes, and Oho or Shonen no Umi goes. Shonen no Umi is coming up from Juryo. He's going to be considered behind Oho at the very least, so we can assume he's going to be gone. That's pretty safe. Let's get him out of here. What do we do with Ganoyama, though? How far ahead of the guys who are already in Makauchi does somebody have to be before they over-demote somebody who places in Makauchi back into Juryo anyway? Is Ganoyama far enough up? Obviously, if we were talking about guys who were going to be pushed down by Asanoyama or Ichino-jo, who completely smashed it, they're not going to hold either of those two back just to keep a guy in Makauchi who barely is hanging on to his spot. It's not going to happen. But Ganoyama can very easily go to Juryo 1 East from 11 and 4 at Juryo 6, and that will seem pretty fair. So even though he calculates a rank and a half ahead of Kageyaki, and even though last time they didn't show preference for the guys who had been in Makauchi, they only failed to show that preference in terms of actual rank placement. That didn't affect who got promoted to Makauchi and who didn't. So I think Ganoyama is going to be the one that stays back. It makes the most sense, and I don't think they're at a point where they're going to start pushing guys out of Makuuchi who look like they've saved their spots just because. So, bye Ganoyama, you'll be here soon enough. And with those two gone, everything lines up pretty much in order. Tsurugisho moves up 1, Mitoryu moves up 1, Oho drops back 1, and Kageyaki falls to the end of the line, but he stays at the top. And that'll do it for our Guess the Banzuke draft. Like I said, some of these are just quick hits. They're probably going to change between now and when the Guess the Banzuke competition ends. At that point in time, which is a week before the Banzuke is released, I will make the same video that I usually do. We'll go through it in more detail, talk about why final decisions were made. It's going to include some of this, but I'll also talk about the unused promotion rank numbers and exactly how significant the extra movement was in this one. But for now, enjoy what we've got, come to your own conclusions, join the competition. If I see you on the competition list, best of luck to you. That's it for today. I'll see you soon.